Hey guys, welcome back to the video. So with the release of Thor Love and Thunder, there's officially 4 Thor movies in the MCU. So in this video, I'm going to be ranking them all. Let me know your ranking in the comments down below. And before we get into it, if you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe and notifications on so you don't miss any time I upload a video or I go live. But don't wasting more time, let's get into it. So starting it off in dead last, 4th place is Thor Dark World at a 4 out of 10. This movie just is bad. There isn't much else to say. In my opinion, there's barely any redeeming qualities about it. The best part about it is Thor and Loki's relationship, but Malekith is a absolute trash villain. And overall, this movie is just an absolute snooze fest. There's little to no good about it. And I will say it does take some of the good medieval elements from Thor 1, which we'll talk about later in this video, but it doesn't really capitalize on what made Thor 1 so special, especially compared to Love and Thunder and Ragnarok, which was kind of making it a medieval Norse epic movie. Thor 2 didn't really get that done. In terms of craftsmanship, visually, it's still a good movie. I mean, I think all the Thor movies look good. I definitely think Love and Thunder has some iffy moments, but all 4 movies do look good to a certain degree, and Thor Dark World isn't different in that. But again, other than just Thor and Loki's relationship and then the visuals, this movie has little to nothing to offer. But with that being said, in 3rd place is the newly released Thor Love and Thunder. I was just as surprised as you guys that it's 3rd place on this list, but I do have a lot to say about this movie, and I did already make a full spoiler-free review with my friend Brantley. It was our initial out of theater reaction, and you can check that out. That's already posted. But in all honesty, this movie hasn't aged well since the first time I did see it. I'm planning on watching it again when it comes on Disney Plus sometime in the future, but I'm not really going back to theaters to watch it. I was going to watch it twice opening weekend. I returned my second ticket because I didn't really feel like I wanted to watch this one again. And every Phase 4 movie other than Black Widow and of course Thor Love and Thunder, I've seen at least twice in theaters, and I really just have no desire to watch this again. And like I said before, it has regressed for me just thinking about it. It went from a 6.5 to a 6. I will say there are good aspects of this movie. It's not unredeemable like Thor Dark World. I do think the acting is good at times. Gore carries the movie overall. I think the score of this movie is good. The fights are good. The action is very interesting, and I really love the way that they play around with the different styles in this movie, especially the Shadow Realm fight. But Jane and Thor's dynamic is definitely what carries the movie here. Their emotional weight gets very, very tense towards the second half of the movie. And again, my biggest issue with this movie, and I've stated this multiple times, is just the writing. The writing literally ruins every single aspect of this movie. It's absolutely terrible, and it makes the first half borderline unwatchable. But I will say the second half is very much redeemable, and I think that's why I wouldn't necessarily consider this movie good, but I also wouldn't consider it bad. I do think it's just an average movie. Again, I'll rewatch it when it's on Disney Plus, but I have no desire to walk back to the theater to watch it. But moving on, in 2nd place is Thor 1 at a 7 out of 10 for me. I just rewatched this one for the first time ever, and I actually like it a lot. I do think the villains are the weakest aspect. I think it's the Destroyer, the one with the yellow eyes, and Loki, obviously. But knowing that Loki is going to be a key player later in the MCU, I think that added a little bit more love for this movie. And I'm glad I finally rewatched it, because when I did my big MCU rewatch, I did not rewatch Thor or Thor Dark World because I could not sit through those movies. But I just needed to give this one a little bit more time, and I'm glad I finally did. I'm glad I rewatched this literally like a week before watching Love and Thunder, and I just love the story and the writing in this movie. It honestly is way better than Thor Love and Thunder in almost every single aspect except for the villain. I also do think Jane and Thor's story in Love and Thunder is better than here, but I definitely think that Jane caters to the story more. Obviously, this movie focuses on Thor more than Love and Thunder focuses on Mighty Thor, but with that still being said, Jane knows her place in this story, and the runtime doesn't really cap in any of it. Whereas in Thor Love and Thunder, the runtime really just shrinks everything in, and it feels like we're just rushing through different things. And Thor 1 takes its time, not only with the Earth stuff, but also our Norse god stuff with Asgard, and I love that. It is just a massive epic movie, and like I said while talking about Thor Dark World, that movie incorporates some elements of it, but this one goes all in. I like to consider this just an epic superhero movie. It is just an epic experience, and I absolutely love it now. Visually, yes, it can be over the top at times with the super like wonky angles, and I don't mind it, to be honest. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's It's not something that detracts from this movie. It adds a lot of style, and I don't mind it. I will also say that I think the Being Worthy arc is one of the best arcs in superhero history, just because it's such a basic arc, but the way they go about it, kind of helping or showing that Jane is turning Thor a lot more human, and him understanding aspects of really wanting to save people, not just get the power that he has. And I love all of the elements that come together to make this movie. But of course, in first place is Thor Ragnarok. It is a 9 out of 10 for me. It is just a phenomenal movie overall. It's easily top 5 MCU, and the humor is actually hilarious. This is one of the funniest comic book movies I've ever seen. One of the funniest movies of all time, in my opinion, but that doesn't detract away from the fact that the movie is still emotional. There's still a good emotional arc for Thor, and I think that's what Love and Thunder couldn't really get to me. I didn't really feel any tension because of the humor, but in this movie, it feels like the humor knows when it needs to take a back seat. I will say in the third act of Love and Thunder, the humor did take a back seat, but even all throughout Ragnarok, when the humor took a back seat, they knew what their goal was, and they created a real tension. Of course, Hela still had her comedic moments, but she was still signified as one of the darkest, scariest, and most brutal villains in the entire MCU, and that's why she's one of the best out of the MCU. She just wants pure carnage, and she just wants to rule, and I like that. Obviously, people can say, oh, that's just a basic villain trope. They just want to be almighty. I don't care about that. If you want revenge, if you want to be almighty, go for it, because that makes a compelling story, and that also leads to an absolutely phenomenal third act, one of my favorite third acts in all of Marvel history. The Rainbow Bridge fight, along with the Immigrant song playing, is just absolutely stellar. Thor losing his eye to Hela is one of the craziest moments in the entire MCU, and again, what makes this movie so great is that Taika Waititi knows when to put the humor in the backseat, whereas in Thor Love and Thunder, it feels like they just doubled down on all of the poorer aspects of Ragnarok. Ragnarok is not near a perfect movie, in my opinion. There's still definitely many issues with the movie, but it can be covered up because there's a lot of other great elements. Thor Love and Thunder, on the other hand, it doesn't really have any of those other elements to help cover it up. It feels very bare bones. The story isn't anything too crazy. Our villain isn't characterized well enough like Hela. It just feels like they took what Ragnarok was, the feeling of Ragnarok, and made it into a movie without any of the actual substance. But guys, that was my ranking for all 4 Thor movies. Let me know your ranking in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.